The marketplace was full of life, but the girl in chains was not part of it. She lay in the center of the plaza, her arms pulled behind her back, her ankles locked in rusted iron. Dust covered her silver hair, her face bruised and swollen. Her eyes barely open. Around her, alien voices shouted, laughed, and cursed her name. Children pointed. Merchants tossed old vegetables at her, and even the guards looked away in disgust. She brought shame, someone yelled. She betrayed the elders, another shouted. No one cared to ask what really happened. They just followed what they were told, that the girl was dangerous, cursed, and deserved this. Her name was Sarixa. But no one called her that anymore. They called her the traitor, the witch, or the chained one. She had not eaten in 3 days. And the sun above burned her skin as if it too hated her. Every time she coughed, dust filled her lungs. But she did not cry, not anymore. Her tears had already dried in the dirt. People passed by her without stopping. Some threw stones, others spat near her. Many simply watched, cold and silent. The elders said she would stay there until she confessed. Or until she died, whichever came first. But then, something strange happened. A man appeared at the edge of the plaza. He was not from their world. He was human, tall. With rough boots and a worn-out coat, he carried a box of metal parts. Clearly a merchant or mechanic. His name was Ryan, and he had come to trade engine parts from the outer colonies. He stopped, frowning as he saw the girl. At first, he thought she was dead. But then she moved just slightly, and her chains rattled. He asked the fruit seller, "Why is she chained like that?" The seller shrugged. "Punishment. For what?" "Doesn't matter. Human," the seller said. "She's a disgrace." The elder said she broke the sacred code. Ryan didn't move. He kept watching the girl. Something in his heart twisted. Not just from the pain he saw, but from the emptiness in her eyes. She didn't even look up anymore. She had already accepted that no one would help. Not her people, not her friends, not even strangers. But Ryan was not like the others. He had seen cruelty before in other colonies, in broken systems where power ruled over truth. And he had made a promise once to never walk away from injustice. Even if it wasn't his planet, one of the guards noticed him staring and walked over. "Keep moving, human," the guard said. "You don't want trouble." "What did she do?" Ryan asked again. "She broke sacred law." "That's enough," the guard said. "Leave her, or you'll be punished too." Ryan nodded and walked away. But he didn't go far. He sat at a corner stall and kept watching the crowd. His food remained untouched. His eyes stayed on the girl in chains as the sun began to set. The marketplace slowly emptied. Torches were lit, and the cold desert wind swept in. The girl shivered in her chains, too weak to even curl into a ball. Her body was breaking, her spirit already broken. But just as the last merchant closed his stall, Ryan stood up. He walked quietly through the shadows. No guards were watching now. He stopped beside her. Kneeling carefully so she wouldn't be afraid, she opened her eyes slowly. For a second, she thought she was dreaming. No one had come close in days. But this human, a stranger, looked at her not with hate, but with sorrow. He reached into his coat and pulled out a piece of flatbread. Wrapped in cloth, he didn't say a word. Just placed it near her chained hands, along with a small water bottle. Her lips trembled as her fingers brushed the bread. She looked up again, and their eyes met. "Don't be afraid," he whispered. "I won't tell anyone." Then he stood and walked away before the guards returned. But in her heart, something small sparked. A light, barely alive, but enough to hold on for one more night. Someone had seen her, someone had cared, and that changed everything. The next morning, the plaza looked the same. The chains still held the girl. Her body now colder, her face even more pale. People walked past her as if she were nothing but a piece of trash on the ground. Some even laughed, saying, "Still alive?" A few threw dry fruit peels at her, not out of hate, but for sport. But not everyone forgot what happened the night before. Some had noticed the human Ryan kneeling beside the girl. Whispers started to float between the stalls. "Did you see him? He fed her. Is he mad? Maybe he wants her cursed spirit to follow him." Ryan, however, wasn't listening to any of them. He had stayed in a small, rented workshop on the far edge of town that morning. As he sipped weak tea and sorted broken engine cores, his mind wasn't on machines. It was on her, the chained girl with fire in her eyes. Even while starving, he had met all kinds of people across the galaxies. Smugglers, liars, kings, and cowards. But there was something about her, something quiet but strong. A kind of strength that only comes after being broken again and again. He asked the local fixer, "Who is she?" The fixer blinked, then leaned in. "She was a healer," the fixer whispered. "Used to help poor villages, but she defied the elders. Refused an order, they say." "What kind of order?" Ryan asked. "Doesn't matter, does it?" The fixer shrugged. "They made her an example, chained her in public, said she must repent or perish." Ryan frowned, and no one helped. "They're afraid," the fixer said. "This planet runs on fear." "Not truth, fear," Ryan muttered. That explains a lot. That evening, he walked the marketplace again, not openly, not this time. He kept to the shadows, watching the guards. Studying their patrols, they didn't watch her anymore, as if she was already forgotten. Even the people's cruelty had become lazy. When night fell, Ryan waited until the last torch dimmed. He moved silently to her side, just like the night before. But this time, he didn't bring food. He brought a blanket and a small flask of warm broth. She opened her eyes slowly again. This time, she recognized him. Her lips cracked, and a dry voice came out. "Why?" she whispered, barely loud enough to hear. Ryan knelt beside her and answered softly, "Because no one else will." Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with something else, something lost and forgotten hope. He placed the blanket over her shoulders. She flinched as if expecting pain. Not warmth, but slowly, she relaxed under it. "I'm Ryan," he said. She didn't reply with her name. She wasn't sure she still had one, but she nodded, slowly. That was enough. He poured broth into a small cup and helped her drink. Her hands shook too much to hold it, but she sipped slowly, her eyes never leaving his. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. Suddenly, a voice shouted from the other side of the plaza, "Who's there?" It was a guard, his torchlight flashing toward them. Ryan stood, face calm. The guard walked closer, eyes narrowing when he saw the human. "You again." The guard barked. "Didn't we warn you?" "I'm just walking," Ryan said coolly. "Didn't touch her. You think we're fools." The guard stepped forward. Ryan didn't flinch. "Touching a dying girl. That's your big threat," he said, voice sharp but calm. The guard growled, but didn't push further. Instead, he spat near the girl's feet and muttered, "She's cursed. And you'll be too if you keep coming back." Then he walked off into the shadows. Torch swinging behind him, Ryan stayed still until the light was gone. Then he looked down at the girl once more. "Next time, I'll come earlier," he whispered. She gave a small nod, almost invisible, but in her eyes, that tiny spark of hope burned a little brighter. The next day, things started to change. A child saw Ryan passing food to the girl and ran to tell his parents. The parents told others. Soon, the rumors turned to warnings. "Stay away from the human. He's protecting her. Maybe he's cursed too." But Ryan didn't stop. Each night, he brought food, water, and kindness. Each day, he asked questions. Each answer led to more secrets, more lies. The story of the girl wasn't simple, and it wasn't over. And slowly, others began to notice something strange. The girl, once motionless and silent, was sitting up again. Her eyes had life, her body stronger. The elders had meant to kill her with silence and shame. But one man's kindness was undoing all of that. The night air was cold, sharp, and silent. A soft wind moved through the broken plaza stones, carrying the smell of dust and old fruit. Sarixa sat hunched over, her arms still chained. But her eyes were open now. Her head didn't fall forward anymore. And her body, though weak, no longer shook with every breath. She waited, though she didn't know why. Maybe it was hope, or maybe just hunger, but deep inside, something told her he would come again, the only one who didn't spit on her. The only one who saw her as something more than trash and chains. Then, footsteps, slow and careful, reached her ears. She didn't lift her head. Not yet, if it was a guard. They would kick her. If it was a stranger, they would curse her. But the footsteps paused beside her, silent. Warm, familiar. She opened her eyes just as Ryan knelt down. His eyes met hers, and he gave a small smile. "I told you I'd come earlier," he said quietly. Sarixa gave the smallest nod, her lips cracked but calm from his coat. Ryan pulled out something wrapped in cloth. It smelled like roasted grain and melted spice butter. Her stomach groaned in response. Sharp and loud, she flinched, embarrassed. But Ryan only chuckled softly. "Smells good, doesn't it?" he whispered, unwrapping the food. Inside was a warm flat bread, thick and golden. Filled with soft root vegetables and herbs, he broke off a small piece and lifted it toward her lips. Her hands were still chained too tight to feed herself. She hesitated, not from pride, but from pain. Her mouth hadn't chewed real food in days. Her throat was raw, her teeth felt loose, still. She leaned forward and bit gently. The warmth filled her mouth like fire and comfort all at once. A soft sound escaped her, not a word, not even a cry, just a breath full of disbelief. She chewed slowly, carefully. The taste made her eyes water. She couldn't remember the last time something didn't taste like dust or blood. Ryan watched her closely, feeding her piece by piece. He didn't speak, he didn't rush, he only made sure she ate every bite. And when her eyes closed for a moment, he offered her water. She drank slowly, her body trembling from the simple act of swallowing. Halfway through, she paused, then looked at him. "Why do you keep coming back?" she asked, voice thin and rough. Ryan took a deep breath, looking at the stars above them before answering. "Because I've seen this before. Good people punished for doing the right thing." He looked back at her. "And I've seen what happens when everyone stays silent." Sarixa looked away. The blanket he had given her now wrapped tight around her shoulders. "They will punish you too," she said. Ryan shrugged. "Maybe. But I won't let you die here." The guards didn't patrol this side of the plaza during the third night hour. Ryan knew their schedules now. He had mapped them out from the shadows over the past 2 days. It wasn't hard, lazy power always left gaps. But he didn't want to rush. He needed her strong enough to walk. And right now, she could barely sit. "I found out more about you," Ryan said gently. "You were a healer. They said you refused an order from the elders." Sarix's face darkened. "They wanted me to poison a well. Said it was full of rebels, but it was a village. Full of children." She looked down at her chains. "I refused, and they turned the story. Called me a traitor, cursed. A danger to tradition." Ryan's hands clenched. But he kept his voice calm, and no one spoke up. She shook her head. "They were too afraid." He sighed. Pulling out a small data pad from his coat, "I found old records, backlogs. Unaltered orders." He showed her the glowing screen. Her name was there, and so was the command she had denied. Proof, untouched. hidden in the maintenance logs of the city's water filtration system. Her breath caught. She never thought anyone would dig that deep. She never thought anyone would care enough. "I'm going to get you out," he said quietly, not just to escape, but to make them face the truth. Sirixa looked at him, truly looked, not with fear, not with hopelessness, but with something new, trust. "You're risking everything," she whispered. "I know," he said. "But so did you." They sat in silence for a few minutes. The plaza was quiet again. But in that moment, two things had changed. One, she wasn't just surviving anymore. And two, she wasn't alone. And sometimes, that's all it takes to start a fire. Asterisk, by the fourth day, something strange filled the air. The silence around the chained girl was no longer silent. The people who once walked past her without blinking now paused for a moment. Their eyes didn't meet hers, but they flickered toward her blanket, her slightly lifted head. And most of all, the human who came back each night. Ryan was careful, but not invisible. He knew eyes were watching him. He saw how the shopkeepers lowered their voices when he passed. He noticed the way the guards followed him with suspicion. Even the children stopped playing near the plaza, afraid of being seen near the cursed one and the human who dared help her. But Ryan didn't stop. Each night, he brought warm food. Each evening, he spoke with Sirixa, listening to her voice grow stronger. And in the day, he searched for more truth. He didn't just want to feed her anymore. He wanted to free her with proof so loud the elders couldn't bury it. He searched old terminals, backup archives, and trade logs. He found copies of her medical records, her past missions as a healer. He found the order she had refused, the poisoned compound listed clearly in the delivery manifest. And then he found the worst part, the village that no longer existed on any map. They erased it, Ryan whispered. Showing Sirixa the blacked-out data screen, they wiped the records. As if that place never existed, Sirixa looked at the blinking screen with empty eyes. She already knew. She had watched it burn from a distance. That was the night they came for her. But now Ryan had more than belief. He had evidence. He started talking to others quietly. Carefully, he didn't ask them to fight. He just asked them to remember. Remember how she once healed their children, fixed broken bones, cured fevers when the doctors were too expensive. Some denied it, some stayed quiet, but some lowered their eyes and nodded. "I remember," one old woman whispered. "She saved my grandson," another said. "She was kind to everyone, even the beggars," but none of them dared to say these things out loud. Not yet. Then one night, as Ryan placed a piece of fried root cake into Sirix's hands, a voice whispered behind him. "You're making trouble, human." He turned slowly. It was a traitor he'd spoken to before, young, nervous eyes darting around. "Why are you here?" Ryan asked, calm but sharp. The traitor hesitated, then stepped closer. "Because I heard what you're doing," he said, "and I want to help." He reached into his cloak and handed Ryan a sealed data crystal. "It's from my sister. She worked in the council offices. She copied everything the day they made the order to arrest Sirixa. She was scared, but she didn't destroy it." Ryan stared at the crystal. This was more than just a piece of tech. It was truth. Hidden for months. "Why give it to me now?" he asked. The traitor looked at Sirixa, still curled in her blanket, eating in silence. "Because I can't keep pretending I don't see her," he said. "Not anymore." Then he disappeared into the shadows. That night, Ryan didn't sleep. He went back to his workshop and decrypted the files. There it was, the council's discussion. Their vote to silence Sirixa, their lies written in cold words. They even planned the public shaming as a warning to others. They knew she was innocent, Ryan whispered to himself. They knew. He saved copies in 3 different places. One in the cloud, one in a hidden drone, and one in a small implant behind his ear. If they came for him, the truth would survive the next day. He went to the plaza early. The guards watched him closer now. One even followed him for a block. But Ryan didn't care anymore. He had everything he needed. He sat beside Sarixa as usual, helping her drink slowly. She was sitting up on her own now. Her voice stronger. "I feel it," she said. "They're watching more closely. They know something's coming," Ryan replied. She gave a tired smile. "Then we must move soon," she whispered. Ryan nodded. "2 more days," he said. "Then we make our move." "But how?" She asked. "I have help," he said. "And I have the truth." He placed the small data crystal in her hand. She stared at it as if holding her own future. And for the first time in weeks, she let herself believe, truly believe, that freedom was possible. But in the shadows behind the stone pillars, the guards whispered to each other. They had seen enough, and soon the elders would act. The whispers had grown too loud, and rebellion was in the air. The morning air was sharp and dry. Guards patrolled the plaza in tighter circles. Their boots loud against the stone. Vendors whispered less. And the children no longer came near the chained girl. Something had changed, and everyone could feel it. But only a few knew why. Sarixa sat upright now. Blanket tight around her shoulders. Her face, once hidden in her knees, now faced the world. The bruises had faded. But the look in her eyes had not. She was watching, listening, waiting. Like a storm building just beneath the calm. Ryan arrived earlier than usual, carrying a simple satchel under his arm. He didn't look left or right. He just walked straight to her and sat. As if this were just another morning. But when he opened the satchel, there was no food inside. Only a small projector and a folded piece of paper. He looked at her, his voice low. "I found everything." Sarixa blinked, her fingers tightening around the blanket. "What do you mean?" she asked. Ryan unfolded the paper, an old image. Stained and faded, it was her, standing beside a child with green skin, smiling. The boy had a bandage around his arm, and she was gently holding his hand. Behind them was a ruined village. A burned wall, a broken solar panel, but her smile in that picture was still full of light. "I thought this was lost," Sarixa whispered, touching the edge of the image. "This was the last village I healed before they came for me." Ryan nodded and switched on the projector. A voice played quiet at first. Then clearer. It was a council recording. A vote, taken in secret, her name spoken over and over again. She refused to follow the mission. She defied the order. "She's a risk to our command. She must be punished as a warning." Sarixa listened without blinking. Her jaw clenched tight. Then Ryan added the final piece, the medical logs from the destroyed village. Children saved, water purified. Injured elders healed, and beside all the logs, her name, her ID, her authorization. "You saved them," Ryan said softly. "You saved everyone there, and they still destroyed the village," she whispered. Ryan nodded slowly. "They called it an infection zone, then erased it from the maps." Sarixa turned her face away. For a long moment, she said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. "I watched the sky burn over their homes. I screamed. But they tied my hands. They made me watch." She looked at him with eyes full of fire. "I never told anyone that," she said. Ryan didn't speak. He didn't need to. He understood. "Why did you keep fighting?" she asked suddenly. "Why not just leave this planet?" Ryan smiled gently, because when someone who did the right thing is chained and silenced, and no one stands beside her, then we've all failed. That afternoon, 2 guards approached them. One had a data pad in hand. The other held a shock baton. They stared at Ryan without hiding their disgust. "The elders want a word," one of them said. Ryan stood slowly. Sarixa looked at him with concern. But he gave her a calm nod. "It's all right," he whispered. They won't scare me in the council hall. The air was thick with incense and old power. The elders sat high above, robed in silver and blue. The oldest among them leaned forward. "You've interfered with our justice," he said coldly. "You've disrupted our peace." Ryan stood tall. "I've uncovered the truth," he said. "I have your votes, your orders." "Your erased records," one of the elders scoffed. "You're a stranger. A human outsider. Your words mean nothing here." Ryan smiled. "Maybe not alone," he said, "but I've shared the truth with others. Traitors. Off-world reporters, and even your own citizens." The room fell quiet. Whispers stirred like wind in dry leaves. "What do you want?" One elder asked. "Justice," Ryan said, "and freedom for Sarixa. You would risk war for one girl." The elder growled. "I would risk everything," Ryan answered. "Because she never should have been punished in the first place." They let him leave. "But not without warning. If you speak again, your blood will stain this plaza," one elder whispered. But Ryan didn't flinch. He returned to Sarixa that evening, just as the stars began to rise. She looked at him, confused. "They let you go?" "For now," he said, "but we must be ready." He handed her the last copy of the data chip. "It's time," he said. Sarixa took it, her fingers firm. "Then let's show them who I really am," she said, her voice no longer soft. It was steel. The girl in chains was gone. What sat before Ryan now was a survivor, and maybe, just maybe, a symbol. Asterisk. The wind howled across the empty market square. The torches flickered low, casting long shadows across cracked stone. Sarixa sat still, wrapped in the same blanket Ryan had given her. But her posture had changed. Her head was high now, her back straight, her eyes sharp. She was no longer just surviving. She was preparing. Ryan leaned against a pillar nearby, arms folded. Watching the guards as they passed by, he had memorized everything, every shift change, every lazy patrol route. They thought she was broken. They never expected her to rise again. "They'll tighten security soon," Ryan said softly. "I felt it at the council meeting. They know I'm close." Sarixa nodded. "We don't have much time." He pulled a small hollow map from his coat and activated it with a flick of his wrist. A glowing layout of the city flickered in the air between them. He pointed to a narrow path at the edge of the old sewer lines. "This is how we escape," he said. "Underground, through the water system. Out beyond the city wall. Too risky?" she whispered. "The lower tunnels are unstable." "I know," he replied. "But the main gate is suicide, the moment we step near it. They'll shoot." She studied the map carefully. Her eyes paused at a faded symbol, the Healer's Hall. "Now abandoned? What about this place?" she asked. Ryan tilted his head. "You remember it?" "Yes," she said. "There's a passage below it. We used to store emergency supplies there." A small smile touched his lips. "Perfect." The plan came together slowly over the next 2 nights. Piece by piece, whisper by whisper. Ryan had allies, now silent ones. A vendor who looked away when he slipped food through the bars. A mechanic who gave him tools without asking questions. Even a few former patients of Sarixa who passed him extra rations. No one spoke openly. But their eyes said it all. "We see her. We remember her. And we're ashamed of what we let happen." On the 7th night, the wind turned colder. Storms were coming not from the sky, but from within the city. A new guard was stationed near Sarixa. Younger and sharper, Ryan noticed him immediately. "He's new," he whispered. "He's watching too much." Sarixa didn't flinch. "We'll move tomorrow," she said firmly, "before the sun rises." The final piece was the key. Not to a door, but to the chains. They had rusted over time. But the core lock was still strong. Ryan had stolen a blueprint from the city archives. Then he built a small override chip the size of his thumb. That night, he knelt beside her once more. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from readiness. "This is it," he whispered, pressing the chip to the lock. It buzzed, sparked, and with a click, the chain snapped open. Her arms fell forward, stiff and numb. She gasped as blood rushed back into her fingers. He caught her before she fell. "I've got you," he said. For the first time since she was chained, Sarixa stood. Her legs wobbled. But she didn't fall. Every muscle screamed. But her spirit didn't bend. They moved through the darkness like ghosts. Each step silent, each breath held. They passed 2 sleeping guards and a drunk one slumped near a barrel of spoiled fruit. The healer's hall was covered in vines and dust. But the doorway beneath it was still there. Hidden behind an old curtain, Ryan pulled it back. Revealing a stairway down into the dark, Sarixa hesitated. Memories flooding back, healing children, helping mothers, mixing herbs in peace. And now she was fleeing from the same place she once called sanctuary. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. "I was born ready." They entered the tunnels. The smell of damp metal and old mold surrounding them. Ryan turned on a small blue light. Leading the way, behind them, the city was still asleep. But it wouldn't stay that way as they reached the last corner before the exit pipe. A loud alarm blared through the tunnels. Sarixa froze. They know. "They found the broken chain," Ryan said quickly. "We have to run." Footsteps echoed above them. Voices shouted. "Hurry," he said, pulling her toward the metal hatch. She climbed through with all the strength she had left. Behind her, Ryan sealed the hatch and activated a lock seal. It wouldn't hold for long, but it didn't need to. Above the hills, just beyond the city, the sky began to shift from black to deep blue. They stood together, breathing hard. "Free for the first time, we made it," she said. But before Ryan could speak, a bright beam of light shone from above. A patrol ship hovered over them. Engines roaring. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing her hand, and together they ran into the wilderness, chased by a world that once left her in chains. But this time, she wasn't alone. The morning sun broke over the hills. Golden light spilled across the dry valley, touching the trees, the rocks, and the 2 figures running through the dust. Ryan held Sarixa's hand tightly. His breath sharp, his heart racing behind them. The sound of engines grew louder. The patrol ship was still following. Sweeping the land with its searchlights, Sarixa's legs burned with every step. But she didn't stop. She had run through fire before. She had been stoned, chained, and left to die. This was nothing. They reached a cluster of jagged rocks near the edge of a canyon. Ryan helped her duck into a crevice just as the ship flew past overhead. They held their breath, listening as the engine roared and then slowly faded into the distance. "Did we lose them?" Sarixa whispered. Ryan leaned out just enough to look, then nodded. For now, they stayed hidden for hours, waiting for the sky to go quiet. Only when the wind returned and the birds dared to fly again did they move. They traveled through the wilderness for 2 days, sleeping under trees, drinking from streams the farther they got from the city. The freer Sarixa felt on the 3rd morning. They reached the edge of an outpost, a neutral zone, far beyond the reach of the elders. It was a small place, built into the side of a mountain. Traders, refugees, outcasts all passed through here. No one asked questions. No one cared where you came from, only who you were now. Ryan had a contact there, a woman named Lyra. She was a former tech reporter who now ran a hidden data broadcast hub. When she saw Ryan approach with Sarixa, her eyes widened. "You weren't joking," she said. "They really did this to her." Ryan placed the data crystal on her desk. "This has everything," he said. "The orders, the votes, the erased files, her medical history, even the image of the village they destroyed." Lyra plugged the crystal into her terminal. Lines of glowing text filled the screen. She read silently for a long time, then looked up. "This isn't just a story," she said. "This is going to shake the entire system." Sarixa stood quietly in the corner. Watching, her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what was coming. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Lyra asked her. "If we broadcast this, your face will be everywhere, your name, your past, everything." Sarixa stepped forward. She looked at the screen, then at Ryan, then back to Lyra. "I was silenced once," she said. "I won't be silent again." Lyra activated the main transmitter. A bright blue light filled the room, signaling the start of the transmission. Across the galaxy, news hubs began receiving the data. Screens lit up in markets, homes, and even military bases. And on those screens was Sarixa. Her voice filled every corner of the known systems. "I was a healer," she said. "I was ordered to poison a village. I refused. For that, they called me a traitor. They chained me in public. They left me to die. But one man saw me. One man stood beside me. And now, I speak not just for myself, but for every voice that was silenced, every soul forgotten. Let the truth be known. The galaxy listened. Some cried, some turned away in shame, some shouted in anger, not at her, but at the ones who did this in the city she escaped from." The council chambers filled with panic. The elders watched in horror as their secrets were shown to all. People began protesting, marching, demanding trials, demanding change. The elders tried to blame the human outsider, but it was too late. They couldn't stop the truth now, back at the outpost. Sarixa stepped away from the transmitter, her chest rising and falling slowly. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing with something new, peace. Lyra walked over, holding a small case. "Where will you go now?" she asked. Sarixa smiled. "There's still healing to do, but this time, not in silence." Weeks passed. Sarixa's name spread across the stars, not as a traitor, but as a symbol, the girl who stood tall after being crushed, the woman who faced an empire and made it listen. Ryan stayed by her side, building new clinics, helping the wounded, protecting the ones no one else would. And everywhere they went, people told her the same thing. "We didn't know, we didn't see, but now we do." And though her chains were long gone, she still kept the broken lock in her bag, a reminder that even when the world turns away, one voice, one act of kindness, one human heart can change everything.